This is CBC Here and Now.
There wasn't really anyone else here to do the job at the time, and so we had to do it. So it's kind of, I guess it's really kind of irrelevant. The job had to be done and someone had to do it.
She was only filling in as the chief medical officer last year when the pandemic hit and the province shut down.
Tonight, It hasn't been an easy year for this business on Topsail Road. Just as the lockdown ends, the store gets broken into.
It was really upsetting because I was like, are you kidding me? Like, again?
I'm Jeremy Eaton. I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
We went from double-digit temperatures this weekend to double-digit snowfall amounts for parts of the Avalon today.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. The Premier says certain data helped him decide to call an election during a pandemic, but government won't share what that data is.
The Newfoundland and Labrador government won't release COVID-19 modeling used by Liberal leader Andrew Furey to justify calling the provincial election. Opposition parties say they're also being denied that data. Liberal leader Andrew Furey has said repeatedly that pandemic forecasting models that helped convince him that it would be safe to call an election in January.
You look at the evidence available to you and you try to look forward as best you can. The numbers were low. The probabilistic modeling looked like we may have a spike more towards the end of March. And so we thought the time was now.
So that was Furey on February 9th as COVID cases began to skyrocket in the St. John's area. When CBC News asked to see the data that justified calling an election, the Health Department says it falls under cabinet confidentiality and can't be made public. The election is now mail-in ballot only. The deadline to submit those ballots is March 25th. The results are expected sometime in April. NDP leader Alison Coffin says she's asked Furey directly for the COVID modeling he used to call the election, but she was turned down.
Wouldn't you think that something so important to public health should be available to everybody in the province and not just held for his own personal political gain? I mean, this is information that could be very useful for, say, schools, for example, or childcare centers or seniors' homes, to have some sense of what that modeling was. So to keep it secret and then use it to determine when the election is going to happen, that's very problematic to me and it does raise a lot of concerns.
Now, PC leader Ches Crosby says that Furey admitted to not asking the Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, about whether the timing was right to call an election. He's not convinced there was any documents pointing to a potential March outbreak here.
Look, here we have a guy, Furey, who ran for the Liberal leadership and the premiership on a platform of transparency. I don't think the documents exist, but if they did exist, he should waive any claim of cabinet confidentiality. If he wants to convince the public that he had sound grounds and reasons based in public safety to call the election when he did, then he should show it to the public that he had that.
Now, Andrew Furey would not do an interview, but the Liberal leader says no data could have predicted there would be a sudden outbreak just ahead of voting day. In an email, Liberal Party spokesperson Megan McCabe clarified Furey's remarks from his February 9th press conference around the modeling that pointed to a COVID spike at the end of March. She wrote, Furey referred to probabilistic modeling which came from data from different jurisdictions. There are no new cases of COVID to announce in the province today. That makes 3 days in a row. The situation was very different exactly 1 year ago today.
Last evening, we learned of our first presumptive positive case in this province. The woman returned from travel on a cruise ship and she is currently self-isolating.
That one case has grown into more than 1,000 cases in the last year. We've introduced masks and closed the borders to anyone who doesn't live here or have an exemption. Dr. Janice Fitzgerald has been front and center through more than 140 briefings. And like everyone living through the pandemic, there are things that have been hard for her.
I really miss going to movies. But it's it really is about those just being able to do those social things that you were used to doing well, without even really thinking about it previously, right? Being able to get together with your friends and get together with people outside of your household.
But what has the pandemic meant for other people who've just been living through it? Well, we spoke to some people who live in St. John's about how the last year has been for them.
But it's been a little bit stressful, you know, lonely. I'm empty nested, so, you know, you're there and no one around, only by phone. But outside of that, she gets me through it all. She gets me out for walks. She comes to visit once a month and we get out for walks every day, but you know, it's hard.
I mean, it's been really hard. I'm a high school student, so it's like hard to set like how much work we have to do and how much like relaxation time we should have. I mean, and it was nice because we were back in school for a little bit, so that was nice, some sort of normalcy.
We were down in Florida when it hit, and so we had to come home. And then during the summer, when the bubble was there, we went to Halifax, or actually it was the fall, went to Halifax, and they collapsed the bubble. So we had to come home from that. But other than that, and the inability to get my hair cut down the last month, we've managed quite well.
Yeah, I didn't mind the first lockdown because I lived in my own home at that time, so I had things to do. But so then I moved into an apartment, and so this is long. This lockdown is it's the second time around. But Thursday, Friday, I got vaccinated, so that was pretty lucky, you know. Yeah.
Actually, it's been pretty good for me because I'm lucky enough to have family around me in my bubble and some friends.
Well, we're going to have more to mark 1 year dealing with COVID. My one-on-one conversation with Dr. Fitzgerald will talk about what life has been like managing a pandemic. That's coming up a little later in the show.
Temperatures this weekend certainly feeling spring-like. By Saturday night, things started to cool down, and temperatures today to start off the week pretty chilly across the board into the minus single digits for most of the island, and then even through parts of Labrador back down to those minus 20s as our daytime high. So today, very different situation from than what we saw this weekend. We saw an area of snow develop earlier today, quite significant gradient in that snowfall. Pooch Cove saw 22 centimeters of snow overnight, and then St. John's recorded about 4 centimeters of snow. But we did see some snow develop a little bit earlier today. These are all thanks to snow squalls. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see on the radar we're seeing some flurry activity across most of the island, most of the Avalon, rather, northern Avalon. And then a snow squall has developed for the Bonavista Peninsula, and that extends, it's not picking up on radar, but extends all the way through to southwestern portions of the island. And we do still have a snow squall warning in effect. I'll break down what that means and how much snow we're going to expect with that one when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a 29-year-old man is dead after a hit and run in Sheshatshiu early Saturday morning. The RCMP say they received a call at 4:15 a.m. that a man had been struck by an ATV, which then fled the scene. Police say the victim was found unresponsive. An ambulance took the man to the Labrador Health Centre where he was pronounced dead. Police say they've located the ATV suspected to be involved in the crash. Now they're looking for the driver. A major shift happens this week in the province's school system. Once again, learning protocols are changing. Some students are going back to class for the first time in weeks, while others are continuing online learning. Cease Hare reports.
Last night when I was putting them to bed, I said, 3 more sleeps after tonight. And they said, yay, because they just really want to see their friends again. So they're excited about that.
Katie Power is a mother of a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old who have been at home for the last month learning online. She's also excited to see them get back into the classroom.
Well, I spent more time sliding and snowshoeing and out in the snow than I have in many years. because every day we'd spend a couple of hours after school doing that. So that was a positive.
The routine, the interaction with peers and teachers, she says, will be good for them. And she's okay with mandatory masks for grade 4 and older kids, even though it doesn't apply to her children.
If my, son tells me I'm not going to wear it, but he goes to school and all of his friends are wearing it, then most likely he will put it on. I would say I'm hoping he will, just because I think it's the right thing to do right now for especially this phase moving forward.
Starting on Thursday in this province, all K to grade 9 students return to school. Most high schools remain online. Avalon High School students have been home since the middle of February.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I think it's been a little bit of a struggle, especially adjusting at first. But I think we've all kind of surpassed some of the bigger learning curves.
Halfyard, who helped set up a Google Classroom with her friend offering mental health supports to students, says staying home makes sense, even though her younger grade 9 sister gets to go to school.
I feel like it would have been another huge adjustment to try and figure out in the span of 2 weeks, because, we are all in different classrooms. We're not all in the one class for the whole day. It would have been, I think, really difficult to do that.
Meanwhile, a survey of school councils in the province shows strong support for online learning.
The students were more focused. They thought the students were more in tune to learning. They saw more development in their students. They saw more preparation in the students.
Coombs says the findings not only indicate moves in the right direction, it opens the door for conversations in the future on how teaching might change. Cease here, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, some restrictions on healthcare services are being eased now that the province is in a lower pandemic level. Eastern Health is expanding outpatient visits, testing, surgery, and procedures. Any patient who had an appointment or procedure delayed will be contacted by a health official to set up a new time. Lab services, such as blood work, will still be for urgent, emergent, and chronic disease cases only, but outside the Avalon Peninsula, canceled appointments for lab services are being rebooked. As for x-rays, ultrasounds, and other imaging tests such as MRIs, patients will be contacted if their appointments are going ahead. Obstetrical ultrasounds will continue as planned. Walmart is closing one of its St. John's locations in the center of the city. Walmart has 170 employees at its Topsail Road location. It says those workers will be offered positions at the other Metro Walmart stores. Walmart says it's spending more than $500 million to upgrade 60% of its Canadian stores with things like new lighting, signage, floor layouts, and beefing up its online store. This Topsail Road location was always home to a department store. It used to be Zellers, and before that a Kmart. Besides closing this location in St. John's, Walmart is closing 2 stores in Ontario and 1 in Alberta. Well, as the saying goes, if you get knocked down, you get back up again. That's exactly how one business owner in St. John's has been feeling recently. Between COVID lockdowns and a couple of break-ins, Saltwater Design has had its share of setbacks, but the owner is still keeping her spirits high. Here now's Jeremy Eaton explains.
Since Caitlin Noseworthy opened up her Saltwater Design store here in September, it's been busy moving products around the world.
So we've been mostly doing pretty well. People are doing curbside pickups and ordering online. We ship a lot, like all over Canada, Europe, the States.
She's been dealt a few blows far beyond her control. COVID shutdowns and a few break and enters. This past weekend, an employee walked into work and found this.
Panic and, you feel violated. And it was really upsetting because I was like, are you kidding me? Like again?
For the second time since opening these doors, Saltwater Designs was broken into. The first incident happening just 1 day after opening.
Did make away with cash and work computers, and a lot of merchandise had to be thrown out because it was covered in blood and things like that. So that was a pretty big break-in. This one, still sucked, but it was a lot smaller. It was a window and then our cash box.
Noseworthy took the last violation seriously, stepping up security.
Thought we had kind of like covered our bases and got the security system put in, and like it did help because we can now see that people were there looking around, but obviously they were still able to get in. So now we're beefing it up even more, which I didn't think we would have to do, but I guess we do.
While it has been heard, the community support has helped.
Social media coordinator made a post on Facebook just letting the public know what had happened because we were open for pickups that day, and just had to let them know, and there was so much support. So that just felt comforting that people were here for us. It doesn't make it easier or anything, but it's certainly nice to know that people do have our backs through things like this.
Noserly says the most popular item she's selling right now is anything with the phrase "hold fast." And that's exactly what she and her staff are doing. Despite the hardships that they've had this year alone, they're currently in the store here behind me getting ready to reopen on Thursday. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
A community center in Harbour Grace is in desperate need of help to keep its programming going. The Splash Center hosts everything from meal programs to mental health supports for hundreds of teens.
But with a leaky roof, some of those programs have had to hit pause. Here Now's Heather Gillis reports.
Since 2014, the Splash Center has called this, the former Harbour Grace Primary School, home. It hosts hot meal programs, prom dress drives, prenatal programs for mothers, mental health supports, and after-school programs, with a focus on youth 12 to 18 in Conception Bay North. But there's a problem. The roof is leaking, and that's causing damage throughout the building.
Sometimes we say that our programming is weather pendant, which is ridiculous when we're talking about an inside facility. But rainy days, or depending on which way the wind blows, there's no rhyme or reason to the way that the leaks happen. But the days that the leaks impact us, sometimes we have to close down the gym for programming, or sometimes we need to move programming to different spaces, just out of the safety. We wouldn't want anyone to slip and fall and those sorts of things, and trying to keep the water contained. It's a job in and of itself.
The repair, she says, has a hefty price tag, about $300,000. And the center doesn't own the building. The English School District does. In a statement, the board says it can't pay for the roof or prioritize repairs on a building not required for K-12 education. It's helped with maintenance and emergency roof patching in the past, even though the board doesn't receive any money for rent, utilities, or maintenance. We cannot continue this arrangement any longer, given the building is surplus to our needs, says the district. So now the center is lobbying municipal, provincial, and federal governments for help.
Our programs are very much relied on throughout the region, so we would hate to have to reduce programming or in any way change our programming.
The school district offered to sell the building to the town of Harbour Grace, something Mayor Don Coombs doesn't want to take on alone. Instead, he says 11 municipal councils from Brigus to Victoria are coming together to discuss buying the building.
So it's something that we're working with the school district and our joint councils in Conception Bay North to see if we can keep it, maintain it as an open facility, providing services that they do for the young people in the region.
Cupid's town councillor Rod Delaney is on the executive of those joint councils. He thinks the centre is good for the region.
It has to be looked at with a vision of sustainability as well.
Meanwhile, the district says if the towns take on the building, the provincial government has noted grant options are available to fix the roof. Potentially good news, but the province is currently in caretaker mode during the extended election.
Everything's kind of on hold, so it's just a waiting game right now.
Snow says that $300,000 price tag doesn't include repairs to the inside of the building, while the mayor of Harbour Grace says he doesn't know exactly how much the building is going to cost yet, but he does estimate annual maintenance will cost around $60,000. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is here now to look at the weather forecast. And Ashley, it feels like we've been on a bit of a weather roller coaster when it comes to temperatures. On Saturday, it felt like spring, and today it's freezing outside.
Yep, right back into that winter feeling for sure. Woke up to some snow this morning. Certainly some areas seeing more snow than others on the Avalon, but temperatures today back to where, actually a little bit below where we should be sitting this time of year. Let's take a look at those numbers across the board, even up through Labrador into the -20s. Lab City at -20, Happy Valley Goose Bay sitting at -13, and then those temperatures for the island into the minus single digits. Now we've lost a few more degrees for most of us, and actually temperatures are going to dip tonight as we head through the overnight tonight. Some areas seeing some of those double digits, but really the story tonight is the snow squall potential for the northern Avalon. You can see snow squall warning for the northern portion of the Avalon, as well as Bonavista, Clarenville, and Terra Nova right now. If we take a look at the satellite and radar, we've got the radar not really doing a great job on picking up where the snow squalls are, but you can see that line over the Bonavista Peninsula extending all the way through to the southeastern portion of the island. Some snow squalls on the go for the west coast. And then some flurries have developed for the Avalon as well. Now, areas under that snow squall over the Bonavista Peninsula likely picking up some heavy accumulation. You could see anywhere from 20 to 30 centimeters by the time this is all said and done. But you can see the models are picking up on the snow squall quite well, actually. And as we head through the next couple of hours, certainly into the overnight, that squall is going to start to drift south. And that's why that snow squall warning is there for the northern Avalon. Likely not going to see 20 to 30 centimeters with this one, but we could see somewhere between 5 to 10 depending on how well that squall continues into the overnight. By morning, we should be out of that snow, but you will likely have to dust off the vehicle if you're heading out in the morning. And then we've got some flurries that will develop for the southeastern portion of Labrador and work their way towards the northern peninsula into the afternoon. The other thing to note with the squalls, is the winds are going to pick up tonight. So all of this light, fluffy snow will get picked up quite easily with that wind. So we could see some whiteout conditions at times with that. Temperatures overnight tonight into the minus single digits, minus double digits for low-lying areas across the island. And then down to minus 19 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, and Lab City down to minus 31 overnight tonight. As we look ahead to tomorrow, that's flurry activity for the northern peninsula will swing across the island, certainly through the north, along the northeast coast, through central, and then we're going to see that head towards the Avalon again into the overnight. Could pick up a little bit more accumulation with that one as well. Otherwise, not a whole lot happening up through Labrador. Some sunshine, and once the flurries taper off in the afternoon, some sunshine will move in, and then the chance of flurries again late day for Lab City. West Coast, you're also looking at the potential for flurries through the day, but also some peaks of sun, certainly for the southeast. But temperatures tomorrow will be below zero again and breezy. Northwest winds anywhere from 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. And then for Labrador, like I said, plenty of sunshine after that potential for flurries tapers off, but those temperatures will be back down into the minus teens. That'll stick around for a little bit, but looking ahead, we're going to see a little bit of a warm up. I'll get into those details coming up.
It has its origins in sailors and our connection to the sea.
Dr. Janice Fitzgerald tells us who came up with her catchphrase, hold fast. 1 year into the pandemic, we talk one-on-one about her role in leading the COVID response.
It was a year ago that everything changed in this province. All this week, we're marking 1 year since COVID arrived in Newfoundland and Labrador.
I think everybody needs to be concerned. We've obviously seen a lot of spread of this disease in the last week, and I think people need to be cautious.
That was the advice 1 year ago today, and in many ways things haven't changed. But the number of cases certainly has. After that first case, the number of people testing positive quickly climbed. But the lockdowns worked, the virus seemed under control, and for months it was mostly travel-related cases. It was earlier this year when all that changed, a new variant and a new spike in cases. Through it all, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald has gone from obscurity to being front and center on all things COVID. Her face is on cookies and cross stitches and plenty of TikTok videos.
Dr. Janice just called a surprise media briefing on COVID. Knows Dr. Fitzjesus is not just, she's had it with us.
1 year in, we sit down with the Chief Medical Officer of Health, virtually, of course. Dr. Fitzgerald, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
It was a year ago that you were announcing the very first case of COVID in this province. Did you expect that a year later we'd still be dealing with lockdowns and we'd be surpassing the 1,000th case in this province?
I don't know. I don't know if anybody really knew what we could expect back last year, but I think just based on what we saw happening elsewhere in the world, we probably figured it was going to be around for a little while. But yeah, it has been certainly a roller coaster of a year. There's no doubt about that.
Now, you were the interim Chief Medical Officer of Health when all of this started. When you took the job, if someone had said to you, you're going to have to lead the province through a global pandemic, you're going to be on the news every night, your face is going to be on cross stitches and cookies, would you have taken the job on?
I don't know. I mean, in all fairness, there wasn't really anyone else here to do the job at the time, and so we had to do it. So it's kind of, I guess it's really kind of irrelevant. The job had to be done, and someone had to do it. So, it's as hard as it's been to be here through this pandemic, and I don't think that's I think everybody agrees that this has been a very difficult year. There have been a lot of positives too, and it's been an incredible learning experience in a lot of ways. So I think I don't ever like to sort of look back and say if I knew then what I know now, but it's the job had to be done. So I guess that's my answer.
Now, the decisions you're making in that role, though, have some big consequences. Not just health implications, but they can also mean financially when you decide to bring in a lockdown. There are people who lose out. There are people who are no longer have a job to go to. How much do those implications weigh on you as you're making those decisions?
None of these decisions are easy decisions. I think in the beginning, none of us really knew what to expect. We all kind of reacted to what we were seeing, and we had to hit it with everything we had because we didn't know what was going to work and what wasn't going to work. And we've learned a whole lot since then. Now these variants have come out and are increasing, and so we're learning more about them, but in some ways we're in the same position again, and so it has been difficult. I think none of us really wanted to go to a lockdown. We wanted to make it as short as we could, but the situation that we saw ourselves in, we just felt that there wasn't any other way to get things under control. And if you don't, if something like the B117 was allowed to spread, it was going to have certainly much more further reaching consequences than what we've seen now with the lockdown, I think.
Do you think you've always managed to find the right balance?
I guess, time will tell. It's hard to know. I think we've always made the best decisions that we could with the information that we had at the time, and felt that we were making that balance as best as we could.
At the end of your briefings, you often use the phrase, "hold fast Newfoundland and Labrador." Where did that come from? How did you start using that?
So there's somebody in some creative force in marketing and communications here in government who developed that, and they developed a little social media graphic that that I first saw that on, and I thought, oh, that is just perfect. It you know, it talks as it has its origins in you know, sailors and our connection to the sea, but it also really does just mean to, you know, to hold fast, to hang on, to hang in there. We're all in this together, and we can all work together and get through it. So I just thought it was a really appropriate for us to be using.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago that this last year has been hard for you, for everyone in the province. Leaving aside sort of the work thing, you're also having to live through a pandemic like everyone else. What have you found the hardest about having to live through the last year?
I think certainly the, you know, the difficulties that come with not having the same social connections that you had before, being able to get together freely with your friends, those sorts of things are difficult. You know, on a personal note, I really miss going to movies. But it's it really is about those just being able to do those social things that you were used to doing.
You've really resonated with people. I think a lot of people have been really drawn to you. I've heard some people describe you as a saint. Would your kids agree with that?
I don't think anyone would agree with me being called a saint. Oh my gosh. And if there will be, it would take a long time to put that fire out, let me tell you. No, my kids, I don't know. I mean, I think they think I'm okay. I think they like me, but you know, I don't know that they call me a saint. No.
But because so many people do idolize you, there's a Facebook group, the Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, you know, fan club. There are 16,000 people who've gone in there and joined it. I guess the flip side of that, though, is there are some people who feel like they can't come out and challenge anything you say or disagree with anything you say because you have this sort of larger-than-life persona. If people want to respectfully disagree or challenge some of the things you brought in place, should they feel free to?
I think anyone should feel free to respectfully disagree. I don't think that, you know, I mean, I certainly haven't shut down disagreement or discussion or debate myself. Certainly, you know, amongst our team, there's always good, robust discussion and debate about things. I always welcome that. It often will bring in a different perspective. It often brings in sometimes things you haven't thought about before. So I absolutely welcome thoughtful, you know, thoughtful debate that is, I guess, that is based in evidence or has some evidence to back it up. That has, you know, so there's a difference between opinion and evidence, and I think that's what happens. Unfortunately, you know, with so much with social media is not respectful, and that's part of the issue. But absolutely, I mean, science lives on respectful debate. That's what it's all about. So.
You mentioned that on social media, things aren't always kind, for example. How has it, or what has it been like having to read some of those messages or see some of those things?
I don't read a lot. You know, I try to stay away from it as much as I can. But you know, I think lots of times when people, you know, say things that aren't always kind, it's really, I mean, there are some that are, you know, I'm not even sure if they're real accounts or anything like that. It's just, you know, those trolls that are there. But I think for the most part, when people get upset, when they get frustrated, often it has to do with just how some things that are going on in their life and how things are affecting them, and the anger. It's easier to hide behind the anonymity that the internet provides us, you know, and to get that frustration out. So I try not to take it personally, and to try to understand the other person's perspective as much as I can. But you can't let it hurt you. And sometimes, you know, you get a different perspective there that you wouldn't have otherwise heard, and that can open your eyes a little bit. But once again, it's not a bad thing to hear someone who differs from you.
feel like we just saw a different side of Dr. Fitzgerald, a different kind of energy than we're used to. It was very nice. And of course, a year later, we're still dealing with the pandemic. So what does the end of that look like? Tomorrow, we'll have part 2 of Peter's conversation with Dr. Janice Fitzgerald. Well, more European nations are putting a pause on their rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Today, the Prime Minister was asked what he would say to Canadians who are hesitant about getting the dose.
Health Canada and our experts and scientists have spent an awful lot of time making sure that every vaccine approved in Canada is both safe and effective. Therefore, the best vaccine for you to take is the very first one that is offered to you. That is how we get through this as quickly as possible and as safely as possible.
Health Canada has recommended AstraZeneca for anyone over the age of 18. This weekend, the head of a panel of medical experts in Canada told CBC News that its latest advice on whether AstraZeneca vaccine is appropriate for people 65 and older will be coming in the next few days.
In a deal valued at $26 billion, Rogers Communications wants to buy Calgary-based Shaw Communications. The deal would merge two of the country's biggest family-founded telecom companies, making it the second largest cellular and cable operator behind Bell. It would also give Toronto-based Rogers, which covers Eastern Canada, access to Shaw's strong presence in the West. Rogers says it has no plans to hike wireless rates for Shaw's Freedom customers for at least 3 years.
Well, Rogers has some unhappy customers. The family of a 91-year-old woman is going public after the company fined the senior for not returning equipment while her long-term care home was under lockdown. As Rosa Marcatelli from our Go Public unit found out, it's a big complaint from big telco customers.
Lori Davis wasn't able to hold her mom's hand for a long time.
I'm right beside you, Mom.
Joan Davis's long-term care home was locked down for months. Joan herself had COVID, making it impossible for the family to enter her room and return phone and internet equipment belonging to Rogers after canceling those services. They kept basic cable, so Joan would have something to pass the time. But despite not being able to access the equipment for the canceled services because of the pandemic, Rogers still charged the 91-year-old more than $560 in penalties.
I think the outrageous part is that there is no room for kindness, consideration, and some compassion.
She says Rogers made things even worse when it cut off her mom's cable service for not paying the unrelated equipment fees, leaving the senior with no ties to the outside world.
It's so difficult not having the TV.
I feel they're screwing over the little guy.
Ben Wilkinson has a similar beef with Bell. He and his brother are losing their live music business because of COVID. They told Bell why they had to cancel their services and asked if it would waive the $580 cancellation fee.
They said as a matter of course, currently they are not doing anything for any customers of theirs that had to close or change their business plans due to the pandemic.
This business ethics expert calls it a missed opportunity.
It's pretty hard to overstate the exceptionality of COVID, on everyone. And so I think it is a time when businesses have an opportunity to say, what can we reasonably do for customers, and particularly vulnerable customers?
After hearing from Go Public, both Rogers and Bell said they'd reach out to their customers. Bell says it has stepped up during the pandemic, waiving charges and providing free services, but couldn't say how often it's done that or the amount of charges that were waived. Rogers did step up for the Davis family. It apologized, reversed the charges, reinstated the cable, and said it would review its policies. Policy changes is what Lori Davis wants to see. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Go Public.
Looking overseas now, images of British police breaking up a weekend vigil in London has touched a nerve for many. It has triggered a debate about heavy-handed policing while trying to restrict gatherings during the pandemic. Also fueling anger is the issue of how the 33-year-old was killed. A police officer has been charged with her kidnapping and murder. CBC's Tessa Arcilla has more from the scene of the vigil in London.
This behind me has become a memorial for Sarah Everard, the woman who was killed while she was simply walking home one evening in South London. A lot of people came today laying flowers, paying their respects to her, but there is growing anger, mostly at the police, especially at the way they handled that Saturday night vigil in what is seen generally as a heavy-handed police response. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson met with the Metropolitan Police Chief Cressida Dick, as well as the Home Secretary and other members of the government to find ways to better handle protests, as well as make women feel safer in the streets of London. Take a listen to what the Prime Minister said.
Well, I was very concerned about the images that I saw, and so yesterday morning I talked to Cressida Dick, the Commissioner of the Metropolis, and we agreed that we'd look at it, and the Home Secretary has now commissioned Tom Windsor, the HMIC, the Inspector of Constabulary, to look at exactly what happened in that vigil, because I think a lot of people were concerned.
There have been calls for the police chief to resign, but the Prime Minister said he still has full confidence in her, and she herself doubled down and defended the police's actions, saying they were simply doing their jobs, and it is a difficult job to enforce the rules, especially when COVID restrictions are still in place. But beyond that, this story has become bigger than Sarah Everard's case. This has become a bigger call to make sure that there are changes in society so that women feel safer in the streets. Tessa Arcilia, CBC News, London.
Welcome back to Here and Now. This month, the East Coast Music Hour is sharing a slate of original songs crafted by more than a dozen local songwriters. The music shares 3 common themes. This week, the theme is isolation.
Appropriate, pretty fitting for the pandemic. Tonight, we're heading to PEI, where rapper Vince the Messenger is merging that theme, isolation, with the spirit of the Black Lives Matter movement. Here's a taste.
Hi, my name is Vince the Messenger. I'm a rap artist based in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Canada. This is my song Outside. Whenever I was asked to do this project, the word I was given was isolation. So I chose to kind of break it down and write and try and include the theme in like a few different ways. You know, the pandemic's still going on, obviously, and a lot of the themes relate to the pandemic. And I think having projects like this and, you know, creating songs like this kind of makes it feel like we're more so like in it together. And I hope it's something that people find some enjoyment from hearing what I'm saying in this song.
It's cold outside, y'all know we can't go outside. Conscious me doing the most, I had some, look. It's cold outside, but y'all know we can't go outside. My conscience been doing the most. I had some feelings to hide. We just gon' take it in stride. Move with the moon like the tide does. Nobody get it like I does. Waiting these walls till the time's up. Been waiting in water for too long. I sing to myself, it's the same song. Thinking like y'all did me so wrong. Like that's life and it goes on. I face the world with my black skin. Thick skin, gold melanin. I was all alone, let that settle in. How you telling me who you better than? I ain't trying to hear from you anyway. If I listen close, then I'm led astray. And I ain't trying to waste up all my energy. Isolate when I need escape. In my own lane, at my own pace. This time spent, never go to waste. It's a lonely road to the pearly gates. It's written still, I control my fate. I don't need y'all, stay in your place. Keep your hands all up off my plate. My spirit got me, I don't know the way. It's cold outside, but y'all know we can't go outside. My conscience been doing the most. I had some feelings to hide. We just gon' take it in stride. Move with the moon like the tide does. Nobody get it like I does. Waiting these walls till the time's up.
Ashley is back with a look at the long range. So Ashley, are there any weather makers that you're keeping an eye on for later this week?
Yeah, we're going to see a little bit of a warm up on Friday, and that may bring some rain with it. So certainly something that I'm watching, but leading up to that, things are going to quiet down, which is nice. So we'll see a ridge of high pressure start to dominate the weather a little bit. Let's take a look at the future tracker. As we head into Wednesday, you can see some flurry activity along the west coast. That will generally taper off as that ridge of high pressure moves in and dominates. Quiet weather across the board into the afternoon. Might see a little bit of flurry activity up through northern portions of Labrador towards the coast, and then maybe into the afternoon as well. But it doesn't look like anything super significant as we head into Thursday, at least the first half of the day. And then that, like I said, watching that area of low pressure move in. Could see temperatures in and above the 0 degree mark, and that could change everything over to rain in some areas as we head through the early morning hours on Friday, and then some snow for portions of Labrador. So something to keep an eye on. Temperatures for Wednesday, though, we're going to stay below 0, a couple degrees below 0. Some sunshine, like I said, in the afternoon, but also that potential for some flurries late day in the east at -2 for St. John's. Temperatures back into the minus single digits for most of Labrador, except for the north and west. You're looking at temperatures just below -10, -13 as your afternoon highs. Now on Thursday, similar temperatures, but they're going to start to warm up. Like I said, 2-3 degrees for parts of the island. So some flurry activity to start, but likely eastern areas, at least the south at this point, Thursday evening, we'll see that change over to the potential for some rain, and we're going to watch that as we head into Friday. So I have that in there as well, another 2-degree day at this point with either rain or snow into the afternoon. By Saturday, back down to those minus single digits with the potential for some flurries, and also that'll be in the morning, and then things should clear out into the afternoon on Saturday. Similar forecast for central Newfoundland, however, keeping temperatures a little bit cooler on Friday. It will depend on the track, but 3 degrees for Thursday. Flurries to start, and we may see some rain in the mix depending on the track of that one. Into the overnight lows, though, they're going to dip back down into those minus teens. Similar forecast for western Newfoundland as far as temperatures go, but we'll see a little bit of a drop, keeping snow in the forecast for you as of now, and then minus double digits as we head into Friday night. Saturday hovering around the 0 degree mark, and some flurries again possible. Eastern Labrador, after Wednesday, things quiet down. At this point, looks like plenty of sunshine, minus single digits, and then overnight lows into the minus double digits, back up to about -3 by the time Saturday rolls around. For Western Labrador, some flurries through Thursday. Friday looks nice, and then into Saturday, that chance of flurries will return, but your temperatures will also bump up through the day on Saturday as well. Wanted to share this photo. This is one of my favorite hikes, I think, on the Avalon Peninsula that I've done so far. This is winter at Chance Cove. Stacy shared this photo with us, assuming that was on Saturday when it was absolutely gorgeous. If you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ashley. And Peter, I must say I'm looking forward to seeing part 2 of your interview with Dr. Fitzgerald tomorrow night. We got to see a little bit more of her personality. What did you talk about with her in the second part?
The second part is really focused on how does the pandemic end? What does the next couple of months look like? And hopefully, how does it all go away? So that's what we'll be chatting about tomorrow night on Here and Now.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Have a great night.